Rev up your engines!
Well, if you think electric cars are ugly and boring, well, the Chinese have changed that. Here's a thing called the Zeekr 007. It is a $36,000 electric car they make in China. Blows away the ugly Teslas. You know, it actually has some style on top of being electric, as you can see here. Hey, it's a pretty snazzy looking car, right? This Zeekr 007 is pretty much a game changer for good looking electric cars at that price range, $36,000, right? You get the fancy electric cars, $70, $80, $100 something thousand dollars. Hey, the Chinese, of course, can make them a lot cheaper. Yeah, as one reviewer said who checked them out in China, he said if it wasn't a Chinese car, it'd probably be Car of the Year for a bunch of awards because it's cool looking, it's got interesting specifications, right? Now, it is an electric car, I'm not a big fan, but for $36,000, you get a car that like that versus the crap that you can get for a lot more here in the United States. The base price is $29,000. Got an EV range of 383 miles, 637 horsepower, dual motor, all-wheel drive, 0 to 62 in 3.8 seconds, and it can charge 311 miles of driving in 15 minutes at a supercharger. So, hey, the Chinese are going ahead leaps and bounds with electric cars, right? Who knows when the technology is going to be perfected? Are people actually going to buy these things? If it's not, there's no infrastructure and stuff for them. But if it ever comes to fruition that people are all buying these electric cars, the Chinese are so far ahead of what we're putting out, it'd make your head spin, right? They don't have Elon Musk making their stuff. Now, yeah, he's making Teslas in China. He cut some kind of deal with the Chinese government to have a factory over there. Chinese communists, they lie about everything. They hide everything, and Elon Musk is pretty much the same, although he's the ultra-capitalist, right? So here we have the ultra-capitalist and the ultra-communist, and they're both telling lies to everybody about everything. So you can't believe what either side is saying. But the Chinese have definitely got a leg up. They make the batteries more for electric cars. They're pushing it more in China than they are here in the United States. Yeah, the Zeekr's a newer company, but get this. It outsells Polestar 2-to-1 already. Its stock price is holding stable, while Polestar's having a hard time keeping themselves listed on the New York Stock Exchange because the Polestar stock is going down the toilet. Nobody seems to want to buy these Polestars, especially here in the United States. Now, they're not selling this Zeekr 007 yet in the United States. They're going to take it to Mexico first because the Mexicans don't have the tariff like the Americans do, right? They're making what look like pretty good electric cars where we get this nutty stuff that overpriced Tesla sells and insane GM products that are $100-something thousand, Ford F-150 Lightnings that are massive failures. Even then, people had paid over $100,000 for those things, only to be disappointed. There's no infrastructure over here for the electric vehicles either. If electric cars do become an accepted thing in the United States, the Chinese are so far ahead of us, make your head spin, right? And you can do all the government crap you want about, oh, we're going to use American stuff, that blah, blah, blah. All right, the business world is a business world. The politicians are all full of crap. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of the economists say tariffs are actually a bad thing. It stops innovation. It raises prices, right? But they just get this knee-jerk thing. It's an election year. Let's say we're going to put tariffs on the Chinese stuff. Then all the union workers will vote for us, right? Nobody looks at it logically. Right? And logically, the Chinese are so far ahead that if we ever do go to electric cars, it'll be like everything else. My shirt's made in China, my shoes are made in China, our computers are made in China, our phones are made in China, right? And our cars will be made in China too if we go electric. All right, I just can't believe the nonsense that this green crap puts out, especially about those wind turbines, giant windmills. Right, check this out. World's largest wooden turbine is now up. Oh, it's a game changer. Wooden turbines, right? You can see they're large by the crane. They're huge things. There's a Swedish startup company called Modvin at full speed can generate 2 megawatts. It's capable of powering 400 households. All right? It's capable. Giant wooden. They used to make them out of wood. They got them around here. They stopped using them in the 1800s. They're inefficient, but whatever, right? It's capable when the wind's blowing to do 400 houses. When the wind's not blowing, not so much. So if the wind blew all the time, which of course it doesn't do. So in the United States, there's 127 million households. If you wanted to use these wooden windmills, and the wind blew all the time, which of course it doesn't, you would need 317,500 of these windmills to provide power just for the houses, not for the factories. And of course, the houses only use a small percentage of the power that we use in the United States. Only 11.8% of the power used in the United States is used by households. So we'll just say 10%, right? So that's 10%. That would mean that they would need 10 times that, the amount of power, 3,700,000 of those windmills. That's not going to happen, right? They keep pushing this windmill crap, and it doesn't work. And it's radical. Look, it's going to provide power for 400 houses. No mention on how much money it costs. Only when the wind blows does it work. Then, of course, you'd have to have battery storage systems when the wind's not blowing to store some of the electricity. And, of course, when it is blowing, if it powered 400 houses, you couldn't store any of that electricity, so you'd be using it. And then when the wind stopped blowing, there wouldn't be any battery power because you already used it all up to power the 400 houses. It's so absurd, yet they keep pushing this thing. And now the greenies have gotten involved, right? So the Swedes are making one of their towers out of wood. They used sustainably harvested spruce, laminated veneer lumber from spruce. If you know what laminated veneer is, it means it's all glued together, right? You know what wood that's glued together and water have in common? The water destroys it over time, right? So if it rains a lot where you are, these windmills are going to be falling over and breaking, right? It's just absurd, you know? These people have gotten so carried away with this green cap. We'll make wooden windmills again. Let's see. We did it 100 years ago and we stopped. Steel stronger, right? But, oh, no. We're going to make it environmentally friendly, so we'll make our windmills out of wood. Giant windmills, like they're not going to fall over, burn down, whatever, break from the rain because they're veneer. Wood that's been glued together. I mean, it's just patently absurd how far these people go with this stuff. It just is. And then when you figure the vast amount of these things that you need to put up to power just the households alone in a place like the United States, make your head spin. Well, if you remember that plus-size influencer wanted us to get to pay for free seats for people that are plus size on the airlines. And now she's whining about Uber. She says, Uber and Lyft drivers should be forced to have seatbelt extenders so they can fit these gigantic people who couldn't control their eating habits, right? You know what I say? Honey, if you're that big, buy your own seatbelt extender and bring it with you, right? Why the world has to make itself fit these people is beyond me. It's patent absurdity. Bad enough that these people driving Lyft and Ubers don't make that much money. But now, they're going to have to buy a bunch of seatbelt extenders for their cars because these gigantic people can't fit in. Now, notice she didn't whine about the airplanes because the airplanes already have a certain amount of seatbelt extenders. I've seen it. Some huge woman was in a plane one time, and I'm like, what are they doing? I asked the airline stewardess, and she said, well, we got this extender so the seatbelt will fit on her, you know? I hate to be the person sitting next to that woman. I mean, she was taking up so much space, it was unbelievable. But all I have to say is, for the Uber and Lyft drivers is, you are independent contractors. You have the right to refuse service to anybody. So if you pull up and there's some gigantic person whining, you don't have to give them a ride. It's your car. You have the right to refuse service to them. It's your vehicle. Plus, if you get somebody that weighs 350, 400 pounds, it's going to wipe the shocks out in your car. You know, it's going to do damage to your car. I had a friend who was gigantic. I said, let me drive your car. I got in his car. It was so low because the seat had sunk almost down to the floor. I could barely see over the steering wheel to see where I'm going, you know, because it had sunk so far. Hey, if I was an Uber or Lyft driver, I would refuse service. I'd say, hey, no, I'm sorry. My car can't carry that kind of weight. It'll damage it, right? It's just insane what these people want, you know. Hey, if you don't like it, bring your own extenders, you know. You're lucky he's not charging you for two people instead of one. Well, if you've ever had people block your driveway or throw stuff in your yard, hey, this poor guy in Australia, he's got you beat by a country mile. Guy comes home and he finds 500 used tires in his driveway. He asked the neighbors, what's going on? And they said, well, we just saw these guys come with a truck. They kept piling tires in your driveway like Tetris until they filled it up and they went away. Can you imagine coming home and there's 500 tires piled in your driveway? Now, it'd be one thing if they were brand new tires. You could sell them on eBay and make some money, right? But these are junky old used tires. Somebody just abandoned them. To this day, the guy still doesn't know who did it. He's got to get rid of them. This was in Sydney, Australia. And I'm sure the laws there are the same as here in the United States. It's very hard to get rid of junk tires. Most are steel belted radials, so they're very hard to recycle because the steel and the rubber is all meshed inside itself. I knew a guy who worked for a company that actually did, but it went bankrupt because they lost money. It was too energy inefficient. They had to freeze the tires with liquid nitrogen, then they had to smash them with giant mechanical hammers, then the metal and the rubber would shatter and separate, and the magnets would take the metal away and they could recycle the rubber. It cost so much money that the only reason it even existed because it was the Obama administration. They had gotten millions in federal grants. Once the grants went up, the company went out of business because it was an inefficient thing to do. Well, this poor guy's got all his tires in his driveway now. Somebody threw them in there. In the beginning, they said the guy was laughing. He said, oh, look at this. And then he realized, what am I going to do with all these stinking tires? How'd you like to come home and find 500 tires in your driveway? I'd be furious. I don't know about you. That's why it's a good thing to have cameras around your house like I do. So every few hours I look if I'm not home, see what's happening, with all my cameras. I got about 10 of them. And if something like that's happening, man, I'd call the cops right away and say, hey, somebody's dropping a bunch of crap in my driveway. Quick, come help me. And they would. Small town, police are friendly, and they don't want people having their neighborhood destroyed by people dumping crap there. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.